All right, so we're back at Sanctuary, and as I mentioned last episode, we're going to try and spruce this up a little bit, get this place ready to share with you guys. And many of you may mistakenly believe, because my name's on the mod, that I'm a good designer, when in fact, I actually lean on the talent of many other people. And so I invited one of those people to come and help me to get the last mile here, because that last little bit of adding the decorations to make the place believable is the hard part. So I brought on our lead settlement designer, Mr. Donald Strong. Welcome, sir.
Hello, hello.
So you had a chance to look at my monstrosity. And hopefully you had some ideas of how I could spruce this up, make it a little more believable. And hopefully you didn't just hate the design so much so that you're just like, well, the solution is to scrap it all, because I'm not going to do that.
In my time designing in Fallout 3-something years, I've seen a lot of Sanctuary builds, and almost all of them, I'm going to piss people off right off the bat. Almost all of them I thought were kind of bad. Yours is not one of those.
Oh, so, hey, that's awesome.
I think it has potential. I think there's definitely some stuff we could do to it to make it like really, one of those Donald Strong messes that I build for you. But
yeah, well, we don't have 3 years, so we're gonna have to tighten it up a little bit. So we've got our design here, and I told you a few particular areas that I was looking to spruce up that I thought I really wanted to focus on, because most of this is just plots. So like the entrance is one I really want to kind of razzle dazzle folks. The front, there's a back area where there's like kind of like a guard spot that I want to look intimidating, and then there are a few areas that I wasn't sure what to do with. So why don't we start with what your thoughts are on the entrance here?
Sure. I like what you did with the bridge. Overall, I thought the entrance was decent. So just for those who don't know, I'm a designer by trade, so most of my highest praise for any particular thing is, well, it doesn't suck. So we've already got that bit out of the way. So like that being my highest praise, I can get myself into trouble by being seemingly overly critical, but that's I'm just trying to tear things apart so they can be made better. So if you take this personally, that's on you. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'll take it personally for them, and that's okay. Yeah, nobody needs to rush to my defense if Don tells you guys something you disagree with. I tend to just like say yes to Don's ideas all the time, because I think his designs have proven themselves. If you guys want to know which ones he's designed, he's been the lead on Finch Farm, Jamaica Plain, Hangman's Alley, Bunker Hill. What other one did you do? It was one of the one you were lead on.
Outpost Simonja.
Yeah, Outpost was like a split design with a bunch of people.
I worked with Cordless on Longfellow's Island and Dalton Farm as well. I think I did some polishing up work on Covenant.
Right.
Making that look a little bit...
So I think that should set the stage for what people should expect out of the quality you've done. If anybody who's played through the ROTC, especially the complex builds, you've earned your right to tell me my build sucks. So go for it.
Yeah, I think the complex builds are due to my build style. Like they probably wouldn't exist if I wasn't building stuff for you.
Well, this is definitely going to be a complex build. This thing's a 50, as you pointed out. Why are there 51 settlers here?
Yeah, that was my first question.
Yeah, that's good. That is a good question. We're probably going to break the game with this.
The island that Sanctuary is on is huge. So 51 settlers is not unrealistic. It just might be something that will set your PC on fire.
Right.
But if you... Okay, so getting back to your first question, the entryway. Back up a little bit and go to the other side of the bridge.
Sure.
So
we're just for everybody watching this now, we're attempting to live stream this because trying to get Don to be able to load my save would have required him to have my ridiculous mod order that you all helped me build. So we just opted for I'll just stream it and then we can go from there. Okay, so we're back outside. We're looking at the sign.
Yeah, so my first thought was I love the addition of the gate, Ethrion's little entryway, and I liked that you put the other alternative sort of like lower grade sign on the other side of the bridge.
Right.
My first thought was that I would switch those two.
Okay, so we bring out this thing. So this one right here, this Welcome to Sanctuary, the old school one?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're thinking we bring that back out front here?
Yeah, my thinking was that like the one that Eteran designed based on the Vault 111 gate has
Right.
some power that it requires, and there's not
Ah.
necessarily an obvious power source. It makes a little bit more sense for there to be like an allure with the low tech sign of like
Okay.
you're this way to Sanctuary, and you cross the bridge, and suddenly you get this like bright neon sort of like it's a little bit more of a grandiose entrance.
Sure. So maybe like attach it to this crazy bridge thing I have over here.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. I'm not going to do most of these changes on cam because I don't know if
take
this
too
is.
long.
Well, it would take too long, and I don't know if the save is going to be salvageable because I have some funky mods installed that I was playing with before we started, and I don't want to lose my save. Okay, so we're going to swap those signs. So maybe we'll put the Welcome to Sanctuary over here somewhere, like maybe tucked on this side. Because one of the cool things about Place Everywhere is we don't have to acknowledge the borders, and Sims Elements can handle it too with city plans. We can put stuff wherever the hell we want. Like we could put theoretically, we could put something like halfway across the map, and it would still work.
Yeah, you
So
could even decorate the statue that's right off the
right,
side of the map.
maybe I'll give him a hat. Maybe he needs a hat for this build.
I, I fully endorse that.
All right, so I'm thinking, welcome to Sanctuary right here, like in front of this pillar or something, somewhere in here, and then point it toward. So then, what do you think we do? Do we just like have nothing up here? Is this?
Um, you don't necessarily have to have nothing. Like there could be lanterns hanging there, something that like grabs people attention as like the sort of entryway
Yeah,
to the bridge is something of note. It's just not necessarily like the entrance quite yet.
sure.
You got to like make it across the bridge without getting shot at to get in.
Because I have like these little lanterns here. I wish I had bigger lanterns, and I wish I had swinging lanterns, but we unfortunately don't have those available in Sim Settlements itself. Those didn't show up until Far Harbor, and we haven't had anybody make them. So that's the best I could come up with for lanterns. Do you know of anything in the tool? This is another thing that all of the designers on the ROTC team is that they know the Project Blueprint mods way better than I do. So might be able to tell me of some things I don't know exist.
I mean, you don't necessarily need the swinging ones. There still are hanging ones. You're just not going to get the animated ones.
Okay.
You could go with the string of lights.
Oh, I love those. The
Yeah,
yeah, the cage lights.
those
the
are
little,
pretty solid. That sort of contradicts my earlier statement of like there's an issue of like getting power to this neon sign. And
right.
string of lights sort of
So like,
requires that, but
so then the lanterns work well if I can find those.
Yeah.
I just got to figure out where they are in the toolkit. Okay. I like that. I'm glad to know those are in there. I'd prefer those to these anyway. These ones are interesting, but they look more like they should be on top of light posts as opposed to hanging.
yeah, I think it's still in the same menu. You just have to scroll a little bit farther down.
Yeah. Eventually, sometimes I get bored of scrolling through menus.
My other thought on the entryway, haven't even gotten in the damn place, is the canopy right there on this side of the bridge doesn't
Okay.
make a ton of sense. Just as like it's sort of something you'd see under an area where people would hang out a little bit.
Sure.
So
Because
one
it's
of the
meant
things that
generally
I
for like shade and whatnot.
right, and
I think
not
I
to
put it
say
there
that
because
they-
it's pretty. I think that's why I decided to put it there.
I mean, that's mostly why I put stuff there. I just go back and censor myself and edit it later. But one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at your build earlier was, this might be in there and I might have missed it, but I had a question of like, if a caravan walks in there, where do they go?
Hmm. Yeah, I have. I
there's
don't
the
think I
caravan
have
trading
that
posts.
thought of, but that is a good point that we could use some sort of. I was plan. So one of the things I think I mentioned on my last vid, it was I need to go to Bunker Hill and unlock the caravan thing because I haven't yet, and then
Yeah.
we'll figure. And then I don't even know where that goes. So what would you? So like you can see on my little commercial district here now. Where would you propose I put that? Do you think maybe it belongs outside, or I would think it probably needs to be inside the defenses, right? That's generally the idea of the caravan posts. Is those people would be traveling, they need to get out of danger. They're gonna want to hang out somewhere where they can do some
Well,
trading.
I wouldn't say it's required to be inside necessarily. I think it
Okay.
would make sense to be inside, but like maybe there's a caravan and they don't want to, mess around with going inside and, paying a tax or something like that. So they
Right.
set up shop right across the bridge.
Okay.
The other thing is there's 4 caravans. So like there are times where you'll be in your settlement and it's not only the traveling medica dude, but it's Cricket and her big booms. And like suddenly they're all
Ah.
piling in this one spot and trying to find a seat with all their guards and their giant Brahmin.
Okay, what if we put it? I'm thinking like there's so one of my design styles, and I don't remember if I picked this up from you or somebody else on the team of don't scrap anything until you need to scrap it because it makes just a lot more natural junk feel to leave some of the vanilla scrap. So I follow that pretty religiously. And so like this stuff right here, I don't know where you're caught up on the stream, but there's just like some pile of like a toilet and some stuff we could scrap. The thing would fit in
Yeah, I
nicely
see.
there. And this house here, I don't think I ever used. So we could just like pick up all this furniture and turn this whole building into like a caravan stop.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I like that
And
a
I don't know
lot.
what mods you're running, but there's one. I know Thematic and Practical actually has animation markers specifically for specific caravan traders.
Ah, yeah.
So you
So
can be
I'm
like,
intentionally trying to make this sim settlements only with the
okay,
for the sake of making this a city plan.
okay. Well,
But
if
yeah, there
somebody
are a lot
downloads the
of
city plan later, they can fix that. But
right. They can just knock my crap out and put in something better.
yeah, I like the idea that there's one place where caravans go.
Sure.
Otherwise, you'd and this might work too. You'd have to find like a little sort of nook and cranny for each one, and that
Okay.
could work to fill in some stuff. But I think like there could be one out front, sort of like welcoming people who are crossing the bridge. There could be this whole building just turned into a caravan trading post.
Sure. Yeah, I really like the idea of that as a trading caravan post. So that, but I think to your point of this about the tarp here is that if I had the trading caravan out here, it might make a little more sense to have that red accent, which is I liked that it tied that together, having the tarp in both spots. It kind of gave it a little theme. In fact, in the episode I put those up, I was like, I wonder if I can get some accents of that red tarp going down along the bridge, but it just felt too. Well, first of all, there's not a lot of these animated ones, and I hate the ones that are stiff. They rub me the wrong way. So
It gives a little life to it.
yeah. Okay.
It also
So
takes your performance a little bit.
yeah, well, I mean, we're not clearly 51 settlers with this monstrosity. We're not worried about performance here. We're worried about just looking
true.
sweet. This is definitely a Donald Strong special in that regard. I'm happy to break some FPS with it. Although I did so you see all this junk I have in the front wall. Like I was gonna
those
do
are
that.
all, like house parts.
Yeah, I was gonna do that all the way around of like having. Well, it's not, and it's like chunks of house parts, and I put cars and stuff. I was gonna do that all the way around, and I'm like, that's just gonna tank performance, and no one's gonna see it because nobody walks around the outside of their own settlements. Like people will walk up to Sanctuary, like in their own file, and see this front, but they're never gonna walk around the other side. So I was like, that's just gonna really tank performance for no benefit.
It's most valuable at the entrances. So like if there's a front entrance, definitely there. The back entrance, sure. Like
Yeah.
you see this even when Bethesda builds a place. Like they'll do some detail work where it's relevant, and you won't be able to necessarily like get through a wall elsewhere, but it also won't necessarily look pretty.
Sure. Okay, so we're thinking once I finish Bunker Hill, I'll drop the caravan thing here, decorate the inside of here a little bit to look like a place where traders might meet. All right, so then moving on through, I'm not going to let you tear my commercial district apart because I love it. So we're going to go somewhere I'm less passionate about. We're going to go to the back entrance here. So this is something I wanted to just look kind of intimidating. And so we've got this big monstrosity here. Now, one of the things I had to work with that makes it look a little funky is that there are two plots right there. There's two martial plots, and I built around the designs that I specifically chose. And like I can see one of the plots has a bug on it with two spotlights inside of each other, but that's not my problem. Well, maybe it is actually. That would be. That'd be funny if this was this might be one of the ones in Conqueror, and then it is my problem. Anyway, so some of that I like did some things like these barricades that are floating above was to make sure that whoever was working the plot could actually see through and whatnot. So that some of that is kind of just by necessity of the particular plot I chose. But what are your thoughts overall about defensive entrances and like what you might do with something like this?
That's a good question. I mean, my answer is for the other stuff sort of touched on this. And you've got some little ones in your house, so you're going to get used to this question a lot. Why?
Right.
Why is the question that sort of dictates how I build what I build. So the tarp was an example of like, why is the tarp there? Like, what is it just to make it visible? Is it there to cast some shade for some people who are hanging out there?
Right.
And thus my follow-up questions. So the question back here would be like, what do they want the people approaching from, assuming I guess the west side of Sanctuary?
Right.
What do they want them to feel like? Is this for like general people to enter? Is it only for some, like a
Yeah, I guess
specific
in my
faction
I
or a
guess I
specific
hadn't really thought of
purpose?
that, but if I'm thinking about it now, my assumption
Hmm.
would be if we had a city like this magnificent, I'm going to toot my own horn. If we had a city this magnificent with an industrial center like that, absolutely you'd have teams going over and salvaging the vault, right? Like you'd have
Yeah.
people nonstop taking tech from there and bringing it in. So then
So supply
this doesn't
lane.
so then this doesn't work at all. You'd want like a big gate for people
Yeah.
to bring the stuff in, and then you'd want it maybe only defended because you don't want people stealing your stuff.
Exactly. You'd want it manned, like somebody inspecting what goes in and out, like a
Sure.
guard post, or toll thing, gatehouse, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Not that turrets are bad by any stretch. If you want to make it look intimidating, so people like skirt the edge of this part of the settlement,
Yeah.
that's not a bad idea either.
Right.
Um,
So I guess it's basically what I was really all I was going for was encourage people to use the front door. like
yeah,
maybe this is for internal use only. And so, but I think yeah. Now telling me that, just go think about why is it like that. And then I
yeah,
just take a second and think about like what would they actually use this for. I think I need a big wide gate that would be wide enough for Brahmin caravans to go through for people to hoard stuff out of the vault. That would be the most realistic use. But I guess when I was thinking defensively, it was push people toward the front door. And one of the things that's interesting in Fallout 4 is you kind of think about the game, and when you're designing settlements, about what is actually around you in the game world.
hmm,
But we often don't think about the fact that just over that mountain ridge, there's a whole nother, like what's next to the Commonwealth. There's probably a whole nother
right,
civilization that somebody could come running over that hill and raid your settlements with. That we're
yeah,
just,
exactly.
yeah. So like I tried to keep
Those
that in mind.
Pennsylvanians.
Right, those damn Pennsylvanians are going to sneak in, and not through this door. They're not. Uh,
Yeah,
so
and the other thing that would help is some clear signage, like caravan entrance only, or like main entrance this way with a big old arrow or something.
I like that. Yeah, sign
Some
pointing
sort of
them,
redirecting.
trying to redirect them around, like traders that way or something like that. Something just
Hmm.
maybe like I could do something that you love to do in your designs, and I really appreciate are taking those arrowed road signs and just
Hmm.
plopping them all over, and I could basically just like draw them a path around
Yeah.
this array. Yeah, that could be really cool. And it's just like that. Those are like little tiny touches that most people will never find, but I think people appreciate them when they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That was
like that
actually
a
on my
lot.
list. Was he needs to add some road signs
Sure.
inside too, just like point down alleys and things like that. Um,
That was
yeah,
actually
that could
something I.
definitely help.
Okay, cool. So we'll redesign this as a trading or as a internal use only. Like it's going to have a bigger gate, assuming that there'll be some sort of caravans. Maybe I will leave like some piles of vault salvage outside here, or maybe just inside the
Yeah,
gate to really indicate that that's
that'd
what's
be
been
great.
going on. Yeah.
It's a
And
good idea for
then
some
some.
visual storytelling.
Sure. And then some arrows pointing around the side, and maybe I'll use some words because there should actually we actually recently added to that toolkit. You guys would have loved this during ROTC, but we didn't have it at the time. It was
I'm already upset.
a full letter kit of spray paint, so we can just write
Ah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, I'm upset.
We finally figured out to add that. I don't know why. Somebody just asked if we had it, and I was like, that would be really easy to add. And then Sorelia knocked it out for us recently.
Son of
So
a.
I don't think she was on the team at the time we were doing ROTC. So to be fair, though we could have either easily asked Ethraun to do it. Anyway, so now I have that, so I can write specific messages. Don't mind my zombie pile of settlers. I turned off the AI because I wanted to reduce the likelihood of crashing during this. All right, so we're going to redesign the back a little bit. We're going to redesign the front a little bit and add the caravan section. I love the way I did my little neighborhoods with just like lots of circles, so I'm not looking to change those regardless of what you think. But this was an area where I was uncertain what to do with. So I have this big barren area, and we talked briefly about how like sometimes white space is good in settlements because if everything is just like a cluttered mess, then you don't get to the white space is kind of a way to make the busy parts seem more interesting so that you can ignore that you don't have to look at every square inch. But I've got basically what's going to be my player home here that I've done almost nothing in. Most of this is just exactly as it is in vanilla. So I'm gonna decorate that out and make it a proper player home with crafting benches and everything. And I'll move like all those over there. But then I've got this big area here. What do you think about this? Is this fine? Or does this feel like an awkwardly large space?
Again, kind of depends.
Okay.
It is awkwardly large. White space is good. I mean, Diamond City, if you get past the big market, there's big fields of crops and, sort of open bleachers and things like that that really give it a expansive feel.
Mm-hmm.
This one, the questions that come up for me are, Like if your player home is the sole survivor's house, is he also the one running this entire show? Like, would he be the overseer of this
Yeah,
place?
I think so. I think my character is definitely the overseer of this, and that's, I mean, to me, that's the only reason to make this the player home, right? Is the idea that
Right.
you're the first one out of the vault,
Fortified.
you're claiming it, and you're gonna make it your, everybody else who's living around you is better be on your side, like better be vassaled to you in
Yeah.
some way.
I mean, in that case, the front yard at the very least could be like the courtyard of the mayor.
Okay.
In which case, maybe the doghouse goes in the backyard,
I
or
think
maybe
that
a human lives in the doghouse. I don't know.
I think I put the doghouse here because I didn't want to scrap it. I always feel bad with anything
Yeah.
with dog meat. I don't want to scrap it. So what would that look like to you? Like, just a rough idea. Like, do I bust out the white picket fences and make it look like the sole survivor is like trying to recapture their old life?
Well, it's hard to recapture an old life when your town is full of empty people and covered in junk and plywood and scrap metal and things like that. Like,
That's true.
it'd probably be pretty fortified.
Okay.
The windows probably would have, if not glass, they'd have like some defensive.
Oh yeah, I did that to my
stuff
bedroom. I didn't like my bed being exposed to the
Yeah.
elements, so I stuck up a couple
So, like,
of walls there.
I think the picket fences, like, you could wall the whole place off and like put the picket fences on the inside of the wall so you can only enjoy them as the player.
Yeah, I like that.
Um, so
Oh,
yeah,
and
I think,
I
like,
see this guy here. He needs to move. He's too up in my grill. I found a residential
Yeah.
plot. He can't be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the plot that's in front of the bedroom is a little bit iffy.
Sure. So yeah, maybe
just
those
in terms
two.
of personal space.
Yeah. So those two probably need to move. Actually, and Pra told me how to use his software to find my 51st, so I can trim this down to a nice even 50, which will untrigger some folks. So yeah. So we'll rehome this guy somewhere. Maybe it'll probably be easier to rehome this guy. Either way, I'll rehome one. I'll kick another out of the settlement, and we'll make ourselves a little more mayoral space. Like, hey, give this guy a little room to recover. He lost his kid and wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different things that you could do with this space. One of the rooms could be dedicated to like surveillance and things like that of
Okay.
what's going on in the town. I'm thinking of Covenant, for instance, like
Right.
the mayor in there doing some seedy shit. It's a place where if you wall it off and you fortify it, like, what happens to people who go in? Do they come out? Like,
maybe. Well, one of the things for the storytelling side of this, this might actually be fun to do in levels. So, like at level
Yeah.
1, level 0, it's all fortified as if the sole survivor built themselves in and then let other people move around him. And then by level 3, started opening it up. That could be a really cool storytelling gimmick for this. Is that you'd start out pretty paranoid coming out of the vault and like everyone trying to kill you, and then as you kind of acclimated to this nonsense of 50 people living around you, that you might be a little more open to visitors.
yeah, and if you're walling the place off somehow, and at least making it sort of more exclusive elite access,
Okay.
then what valuables go in there? Like, what are you protecting other than your own particular space? So
Right.
that could be like, power armor workstations that are private. That could be valuables. That could be like a hoard of scrap and bottle caps. Who knows?
Sure. One thing
if
I
you go on
thought
the
I
visuals-
thought about doing with the walling things off and making an arm is maybe walling off this garage port and making that so I could have my crafting benches outside technically, but maybe they'd have like security fencing so people can't get in and take my power armor.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple builds that you could probably look into just for some inspiration. I know Fallout 4 guy has some where he turned this place into, sort of a giant bunker with a bunch of like secret stashes in it.
Okay.
Which is a pretty nice idea. If you're going the like visual storytelling route for this, especially where it upgrades in levels, like you could make the Soul Survivor's kids' room into sort of a shrine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's a shrine for just the kid and the spouse, depending on which gender the player chooses.
Right. Yeah, I'd have to get careful with that because we don't have. I mean, I don't ever want to have to get that complex in our designs of like check player gender in our city plan code. Like that would be a lot.
But you're talking to the guy who overthinks everything. So
yeah, I could see that definitely. In fact, I think I did leave his crib. I always leave the crib. I can't get myself to scrap it, even though I know who Sean is. I'm like, no, can't do it. I would never scrap that if that were me. Okay, so yeah, so the visual story, that would be a great idea. I really am. I'm clinging to that idea of the visual storytelling. I think that would be a lot of fun. Of like make him go from a hermit toward to like slowly opening up and just trying to be more mayoral. So then what? So then what do you think this place looks like as a mayor? Do I make him just kind of open and friendly and just make sure that I'm obviously going to have a nice space. So like if I'm supposed to be king of the town, they're going to be.
Right.
I'm going to have all the best furniture. And I'm
Well,
gonna have to, yeah.
one thought is like he's right on the main street, so
Okay.
if a scrapper comes in here and just walks down the street, they're gonna see, oh, that's the mayor's house. Like there should probably be some barrier to them just like going up and knocking on the door.
Sure.
Perhaps.
Okay.
I don't know. That could take any form.
Okay.
But my thought is like maybe the front yard or the front of the place is a little bit imposing, and the backyard is the thing with like fancy white picket fences and like cigars and fancy nobility type.
Maybe I need a bouncer for my house.
Yeah, I mean
that's what the 51st guy can do. I'll kick him out of his house and his job, and I'll
Yeah,
just set him up a
Marshall
guard post.
there you go.
Okay, I like that. All right, so that gives me a lot to work with, and that would
Yeah.
push it out into this front yard area, and then that would just leave basically the street and this little bit, and that then feels like appropriate amount of white space because if we covered all that up, then we're basically like creeping in on this garage port and those are outhouses right there, by the way, the two with the red
Got
white
it. I was
door.
wondering what those were. Yeah, that makes sense. Can you? I'm not going to destroy your beloved commercial district, but can you go over to that neck of the woods?
Back to the commercial area.
Yeah.
All right.
And just to clarify, that was a yes, affirmative. That amount of white space is good.
Okay, cool. Okay,
What you
so
were just asking.
I'm looking at the commercial district right now.
So, one of the things that was a question in my mind when I was looking through this earlier was, if I'm new as an NPC, for instance, walking in here, how do I know what is what?
Well, I would hope that the signs on the buildings take care of that. Like this thing says Scrapper Delight. This says Liquor. This says Gunsmith. Like that was the hope. Was the entry? Was that they each of the buildings would handle themselves?
Yeah. So there's one level of clarity there. Another is something that I tried with Bunker Hill, which was to put like billboards, especially outside, but here you could do them on top of things.
Okay.
And maybe that's sort of like in the background attached to the walls that are behind these buildings
Yeah,
or on
we
top of the houses. Just
Sure.
like, so one of the reasons this question came up for me is it, like I could recognize, the liquor place, the bar, and a couple of these other places, but it wasn't clear to me at a glance this was like the commercial district.
Gotcha. So make it more gaudy and more because one of the things I want to keep in mind here is that some players who use this as a city plan might not want to use the designer's choice. They might not have the
Right.
same add-ons installed, so the stores won't always match. But you're thinking just having more advertisements in general of some sort will just at least sell this district for what it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't have to be super specific, but like a general sort of like, I mean, the commercial district in any city like this is going to be the place where nightlife happens, especially if the plot
Yeah.
becomes a bar.
Okay.
It's going to be the place. It's probably the most well lit.
Sure.
It's going to be the place where NPCs go to gather, or at least theoretically would, even if the AI doesn't cooperate. So like, there's plots. You could also have, I don't know, like you could build a little theater. You could build places for like people to sit and gather and like shoot the shit that aren't part of
Okay.
plots. And
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
What do you think
Does that
about
make sense?
for us? Yeah, I agree 100%. And like, there's probably lots of little areas I could do that and make it feel like this bar. One of the things that like we have, I feel like what most, at least, and maybe this is just something that they did in the existing Fallout games and doesn't need to happen everywhere, is there tends to usually be like some centerpiece. Now, I feel like this design that I have here is probably too tight to put anything substantial in the middle of this circle, but it does feel like it wants something in the center there. You have any thoughts?
I agree with that. As far as specifics, it's hard to tell. I mean, at the very least,
Maybe signage.
I mean, like
maybe
I
that's
might go with like one of those big freestanding clocks
Okay. Yeah, that could work.
and sort of decorate around that.
Oh, and I could
weirdly,
tie
the first thing-
more of these flags to it. I love those.
Yeah, strings of lights of lights would like light the whole area.
Oh yeah,
You
the
could have
cage
some extra
lights.
lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm liking that.
And maybe you just do that to the lampposts so that if plots change, then it doesn't, attach to nothing.
Right.
Weirdly, the first thing that came to mind was like the alligator that was turned into a clock in the movie Hook. I have
Wait,
no
maybe
idea why.
we could do that. Oh, we could emulate that. We've got the Deathclaw head.
Shit, yeah.
I could scale that way up. Yes, let's do that. I'm a huge fan of that movie. I love it.
I have no idea why that popped into my head, but you need to do that.
Yeah, that's happening. Deathclaw head with a clock in its mouth and cage lighting coming off of it. Awesome. Well, you just enhanced my commercial district instead of telling me it sucks. So that's awesome. All right, let's go over to the last district I wanted some input in, and that is our industrial. So one of the things that I've ended up doing with this settlement, and I was going to change it, I was going to do more walled off, but I'm glad I did it the way I did, is I left lots of little alleyways and random paths between things where you can wander around, and it makes it better for the AI, and it makes it more fun for me to explore, because then when I'm like, I need to run over here, which way can I go? Now, granted, most of the time I'm flying in workshop mode, but once in a while. So there's like lots of random little ways to get into places, and I didn't want to lose that. So I had tried briefly putting a wall to segment off the industrial, and I just didn't like the feel. It made it feel very claustrophobic when everything else is like fun little alleys to explore. So I came up with this fencing thing here. Is like, it's still like you can just walk around the fence, but it gives it kind of a division, like a clear indication that you're changing zones. Do you have any thoughts about that in general, about that idea? And then are there something different I could have done? And then also I'm looking for feedback on what to do with this circle, because the tree obviously makes a nice centerpiece. And I guess I'm not sure exactly if that's a good amount of white space there, if that's too much. The behind there, I'll give you a quick tour. I don't know if you saw this in the video I showed you before. Here is pretty full, and obviously it's got all of these solar panels pointing at our big centerpiece. So like I feel like this back area is in pretty good shape, but it's just this around this vanilla tree that I wasn't sure, and the division between the zones that I wasn't sure what to do with.
Yeah, I had a bunch of thoughts. Some
Okay.
of them might not be your cup of tea.
Okay.
If you want to segment out the district, I like the fencing that you added, even if it's not 100% secure, because what is in the wasteland?
Right.
It might be prudent to add a sign to that gate just to
Okay.
like indicate a change of district. I don't know what you would name it,
Sure.
because the thing might change based
I
on
could put like an
lots of people have.
an employees only sign, and maybe some safety signs, and maybe some gear, like maybe some safety helmets or something.
Or like something that says workers only, or
Sure, yeah.
you could craft it custom with whatever lettering.
Now that we have all the lettering that you didn't have.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of
Okay.
the sort of like turn of the century industrialization where
Okay.
you'd have lines of hundreds of workers waiting to like clock into their
I do.
industrial
We do have a time clock. I could put that in.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Something like
Okay.
that. Something that indicates like people are going to work in here. This is not for traders and
Sure. Okay. Okay. So that would be the entryway. So we kind of just decorate a little more, make sure it's clear that this is you're walking into work, and you're out of the shopping district.
Yeah, so question before I continue with all of my myriad thoughts. What's going on in the house to the left?
The one that was actually what I just
Yeah.
scoped out real quick here is I was like, I don't know I'm not using this garage port. This house I think is largely unused, but let's go poke our heads in. Because I left a lot of the interiors. My problem with I love these interiors when I'm exploring as the player, but they're way less fun when I'm coming back to my own settlement because I can't see what's inside as they're growing. So recreational plots are actually something I find boring because
Yeah.
I never see them. I don't remember to check in here. So this is all just the vanilla stuff. There's literally nothing in here right now. So I guess I guess we could call it a break room. We could call it basically whatever we want. Like right now it's nothing. It's just empty furniture and stuff.
So my sense was it didn't seem like anything was going on in there, but my sense of it too is that like you'd have a little bit more room for industrial stuff and also like sort of back alley residential without that house.
But this is not a scrappable house, so that has to be there.
Is it not?
Yeah, it's not scrappable.
Never mind.
So yeah, like
even
it
if
would
you
be.
do,
I'll probably come in here and clean it up for this, like just to make sure that the chairs are all sittable and stuff. But I personally was just planning on leaving all of the vanilla stuff here, as just like I'll leave this for players who use the city plan. If they want to add stuff to it, they can. But because it looks fairly furnished right now. I could be convinced to make it into something, but I guess my issue there is like what would make most sense for it would be to tie it into the industrial a little bit, but it's almost It's where we're kind of using it as a wall. If you look at this,
Yeah.
like,
So you can't scrap it even with extra object selection.
correct.
Damn. All right. Well, what are you doing with your industrial waste? And you
Ah,
turned it
that
into a dump.
that's funny. So that's in our ROTC build. That's what we did with this building here. If you have the complex version, this turns into a nuclear waste dump. We just stuffed it full of barrels, which is really funny.
Damn it. You're way ahead of me.
But for ours in here, I think we just have this one random rec plot, which I might end up scrapping. Oh yeah, and apparently we have a Brahmin in here.
Well, he makes waste.
So we have basically these two houses are just completely unused, just because that's my preference to not use a lot of interior stuff.
Gotcha. Well, in that case, I was just wondering if the space that house took up was salvageable. So I guess not.
No, and I actually thinking about it from an industrial perspective, I think this would be the one that makes the most sense because it's got an entryway into that building right between two industrial buildings.
Yeah.
So it could definitely be turned into storage and waste.
Yeah, and you could almost fit at least an interior plot in the front yard of it, and to the right of the door.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to move that little car. Although I don't know how removable those bushes are. So what I was thinking about the tree,
Okay.
is that this city requires a lot of wood. Like there's a lot of wooden houses
Okay.
and things, and if this is an industrial district, that tree would be the first they would cut down.
Which we can't do. Again, it's another one
Damn
of those
it.
things that's it's like you've never played this game vanilla before.
Dude, I built a sanctuary like once or twice, but always with a scrapping mod.
Oh yeah, no,
There's a reason
I hate.
crashed so much
If you install a scrapping mod with this design, your game will crash immediately because
Yeah.
pre mines are a must for this design to work.
That's fair. I couldn't honestly remember. It's been so long.
Oh, that's fair.
What was pre-combined and what was
So now,
the tree has to stay.
so now I've ruined two of your plans. So
Well, we got to re-record this whole thing. The tree then, like, it needs to serve some kind of purpose.
Sure.
One of the things that I almost did in one of my builds and didn't pull it off entirely, just because I kind of hate building in this location,
okay.
is gallows.
Oh.
Just a little bit dark. I actually did this at Bunker Hill. There was a tree we couldn't scrap, and it was to the right of the main market. If you're standing.
Yes, I do remember that. Okay, I remember.
And it was people hanging from the trees.
Okay.
That's a little bit morose. There's a giant tree, so you'd have people hanging from it, and I don't know how many ladders the people here have.
Yeah.
So, like, what I had tried to build, I think, was like a platform with gallows where you could, like, I think it was after the DLC where you actually had trapdoor platforms.
Uh-huh.
And
I guess that would be one way for me to reveal to my settlers that I'm actually a raider lord, because this is like all of this is designed like typical Sim Settlements fashion, very very friendly and junk. And then this on the side in this whole character, I'm running a raider empire.
I mean, it's very industrial. They would totally be raiders over here. Other option, a little bit less violent, is you could bury your dead like around the roots, like have a little sort of circular graveyard.
Sure. Does that feel to me that feels both of those ideas feel a little off, that it's because all of the industrial buildings are facing it. Yeah. But maybe we need to, maybe you need more time to think on that now that I'd spoiled your vision of knocking down the tree.
You did. You ruined it entirely. I was gonna say put the giant Euclid thing in the middle there.
Yeah, that would have been cool. And had we been using a scrap mod, that probably, in fact, I think I've seen people do that on YouTube videos. That is such an awesome place for something like that. But in our case, it's kind of a requirement. We have to make do with it. So,
well, now everyone knows what we deal with when we make City Plant.
Oh yeah, well, I think that makes it more interesting, because then you're not stuck with the full blank canvas. You're certain limitations that you have to deal with. It's the same reason I don't like just scrapping everything.
Creativity grows with constraints, and definitely
absolutely.
That's improved my skill. Well, I've had to not be able to scrap anything. Just ask anybody who worked with me on Finch Farm.
Right, and we cut your knees off with you're taking away all your mods too.
Yeah, mid build, had to redesign the entire main building because of a bush.
That's many of people's stories, I'm sure, of having redesigned buildings or redesigned settlements over a bush. Okay, well then we'll just leave that then. We'll just assume that these changes I'm going to make here will get me started, and hopefully it'll inspire something. But thank you, Don, for the input. Is there any other things you saw in the video while you were looking around that aren't going to take us 40 minutes to go over, that you could give me some quick pointers on?
Yeah, I've only gone through half my notes, but most of these are quick.
Okay.
So head on over to the commercial area.
Okay.
This is just as an example, not something specific over there, but um, one of the things I noticed with the pathing in here, like how things are with respect to the street itself and the plots that are laid out, was some of these have foundations that are wood,
Uh huh.
and sometimes that makes sense for them to be elevated like that, and sometimes there are some plots that are just like you have a wood platform on a concrete street, which in my mind was a little confusing. Of
Okay.
like, why would a settler build a platform on top of a platform that
Right,
seemed
right. Like
inadequate?
this one right here and the one next to it. Neither of these need those don't really need to be there. They're not the ground's not uneven enough to justify it.
Yeah, and that's not like you don't necessarily have to platform in that case, but I think like one of the things I think you're using place everywhere here. So one of the things that I have done is place things down like you have done here, and then very carefully nudged down the foundation
Yeah.
and the plot itself, so that and then refresh the plot so it refreshed at the right level.
Right. Well,
So
most
that
most
at
people don't
least,
have that ability. You just had special
yeah,
toys to do that, but we could do that. I definitely have the console commands necessary. Yeah, I could see
yeah, and
that.
those
So
are.
like
I was
getting
mostly
rid
thinking
of
that
these.
for.
Yeah, I could see these two here. This one probably. I think this one's a little bit elevated. This one definitely needs to be on platforms. The armor store. But yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
those are not bad. The one I was thinking of, I think in particular, was the trailer player house, just like sitting in the middle of the road.
sometimes I just leave the automatic because we have an automatic system for dropping uh, the foundations now built into the plots, and I
Hmm.
just leave that on because I like it. So, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
in most of these here they don't need these foundations really. But that's just me leaving it on, and then I get to be a little lazier with my placement. Yeah, in
yeah,
fact, I would say all six of these going right down this alley, none of them really need those foundations. They could just be sunk into the ground a little bit.
yeah. And so it's not like, I mean, there's a question of laziness, which is not what I was getting at, but from a visual standpoint,
Yeah.
it's for me the like harsh transition from the edge of the particularly the wooden foundation to its environment. So
Okay.
like there's this weird like visual harsh transition between like the concrete of the street, the pavement itself, and
Okay.
the wood.
Sure.
And that in my brain is like, well, why is that there?
Yeah, no, that
It's
totally makes sense. I could
weird.
get it. I could get behind that. So I just just scrap these platforms, scooch the plot down, and refresh so the buildings appear in the correct spot. Yeah, definitely can do that. So all along the street. So it's mostly the stuff down this lane right here, and then I'm thinking this scrapper. What is this? Scrapper's Delight and the furniture store. I think both could get the same treatment, as neither of them really need those platforms, and they'll still
Hmm.
look nice. And yeah, it'll just make everything blend in more with the existing game world too. So that'll look great.
Yeah, and that's really my end goal with anything I build is just to have it blend in as seamlessly as possible with
Sure.
what's already in the world.
This one looks like I might be able to pull it off too. Is like instead of having this whole foundation that I have here, is
Hmm.
I could probably just manually build a little extension off of that platform from Sanctuary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could do that.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely play with those. Okay, what do we got next? And don't worry about my generator farm back here. That's not going to last forever. That's just
Good. That was
we're
definitely a big note. Get rid
s-
of that.
yeah, so that was me just like knowing that the long-term plan was to have nuclear reactors everywhere, and these just take
Hmm.
forever to build and upgrade. So I have a second one right over here. This iron mine is scheduled to be another nuclear reactor, and that'll give us all the power we need.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
so
What are you gonna replace the generators with?
that we won't need them anymore. We'll have nuclear power.
No, I know, but I mean not power-wise. I
Oh,
mean
like what do we put
space-wise.
back here? What do we put
Yeah.
back here? Um, I'm thinking this probably should just be some sort of. We should just embrace the fact that the game likes to dump all the settlers here and just fill it with relaxation objects of some sort. I don't know what.
Yeah. Or since you can't, have you been able to scrap all of the invisible animation markers where they're hand house?
No, but I solved that by covering it with generators so they can't reach them.
All right. Well, I guess that's less noisy. Well, that's a different type of noise.
Right, it's a different type of noise. So yeah,
Um,
I'm thinking like this would make a great spot to just fill it with just interesting things for the settlers to do, but I don't know what. I hadn't really put that much
could be
thought into
another
it.
bar. I mean, if they're gathering there naturally,
Yeah.
then that might make sense. It could be crops. It could also like that's a 2x2 space, you could shove one of
Oh,
those
I know what we can do with it.
plots in.
So right in here, something we can extend on the theme that was thrust upon us by a random selection. We ended up with a jail cell in here in a interior martial plot. So maybe I can make it the prison yard.
Yeah, that's sobering, but yeah,
It's gotta be somewhere to put the bad guys.
that's true, and it's better there than in the mayor's house, I guess.
And it'll be a nice little. It'll be a prison for all of these settlers who can't figure their AI out and decide to hang out in the center where they get dropped.
Perfect. It'll be a city full of prisoners.
Okay, that could be.
Have you fixed the cows on the roof problem?
I mean, I haven't run into cows on my roof yet, so
Okay.
yes.
Just inside your houses.
Yeah, no, yeah, just inside my houses. I invited them indoors. That's how I solved it. No, I haven't run into it yet, so it hasn't been a problem for me.
So one of the things you mentioned in the video you did on this was the idea of having a sort of a second level and having like walkways sort of around the street.
Yeah.
And the idea that might seem a little bit prison-y.
Right.
I think there's a way to do it without sort of achieving the prison type feel.
Okay.
And I'm saying that because I had this thought before you made that particular observation, where so I was looking down this street in particular at the metal shack that's sort of halfway in the street and the trailer that's kind of totally blocking the street farther down.
Okay.
Of
So
if there's an
here.
issue of
Yeah.
spacing plots out so much
Okay.
that they're overlapping with the street itself,
Right.
there you could have like sort of an overpass of the street where like there's plots on top of them,
Okay.
where like the street sort of goes through a scrappy little tunnel.
Okay.
Um,
And so almost we have like a whole second level of people living on top of the houses.
yeah,
So then the bridges are connecting people's houses as opposed to connecting just walkways for the sake of looking down on your prisoners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely something with an actual purpose. And I think like if you're building stuff on top of the garage of that yellow house that people are always hammering on, could easily connect to it in some way.
Mhm.
A lot of people do this with Sanctuary where they build on top of the roofs, and often it doesn't look all that great. I mean, I think we even did that in our OTC builds.
Yeah,
Like
we
some
have
stuff
stuff built on
elevated.
top of several of these homes. I think part of what I was doing was just trying to make it evolve naturally, and like it would be just people would just be throwing down their houses wherever they could on the ground, regardless of whether it used to be a
Yeah.
road. And then partially I was trying to make sure that my build was not just copying the Sanctuary, though. I mean, and no one's going to copy that Sanctuary build naturally. That build is crazy.
Yes,
But I did go a little bit of roof. I started over here. I stuck one on top of this carport over here, and I really like that. I think that looks good, and it's a nice. It like was easy to do. Like it just were a single vanilla stairway, and it didn't feel like it doesn't feel particularly out of place right where it's at. So I could do more of that, and then having them connected with walkways would make more sense. To me, the ones that would make the most sense that I'm not actually in love with are all the same ones you told me to move anyway because of the foundations. This little street of houses, I don't particularly love this. I prefer like the little neighborhood circles that I've got going on. So I could almost create a neighborhood circle up on top of the roofs of all of these sanctuary houses, which would be really cool and still fit within the theme of what I got going on.
Yeah, and you could have like a slum down below or something like that.
Yeah, I guess that would be the only issue. I guess would be what do I do then with all this space that suddenly opens up on the street?
That's a good question.
So if we essentially
might become clear as you do it. I don't know.
right, yeah, maybe, or you're just opening up a Pandora's box of extra work for me, and this is how we get into the 3-year trap.
Welcome to building with Donald Strong.
Okay, I like the idea. I don't know if I'm going to pursue it, but I do like the thought of that. That's another route we could have gone. Is instead of just flooding the street, is going to rooftop homes. And that would definitely give some more verticality, which is really, to me, one of the things that makes a great settlements design, is having the thing just, it feels more impressive when you've got some verticality and more realistic.
Yeah, and I don't want to. There's a way you can overdo this and make it really overwrought. I think like doing something on the roof of maybe 2 of the houses could be adequate. Really this section right here that we're looking at.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to necessarily be a circle of houses an entire community up there.
Okay.
But just enough that it seems like maybe this settlement was 48 people and there was nowhere else to build a damn house. And somebody was like, well, I guess I'm building it up there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you see this in animals that live in the wild. You will see this with people who are living hand to mouth in a wasteland.
Right.
There's a big thing about conservation of energy, and if they don't have to reinvent the wheel, they won't. So they're just gonna put it down where it makes sense.
But yeah, but I guess we've got this one that's just overlapping in the street, and then this one in front of what would be the mayor's house. That one's gonna have to go anyway, so I'm probably likely gonna be moving 2 houses. So yeah, I could see that, just adding 2 more to the roofs, and then having an excuse to add a few more walkways up. Maybe I won't do all the buildings connected. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but even just having a couple of interesting walkways up high would be cool looking.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's a good idea. Since I got to do some relocation anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think I'm sure you have more ideas, and you could tear this thing apart backward and forward for hours. But in the name of making this content more interesting, we're going to cut you off. Maybe we'll have you back.
5 more, but they're rapid fire.
Okay,
It's
go.
just basically add some billboards, bunch of strings of lights, fire barrels,
okay.
signage like street signs and
Okay.
other things like that, and
Okay.
like construction materials for things that are not finished, like things that are being built or taken apart, stuff like that. Just visually, that stuff makes a place like this feel more alive.
Okay, awesome. And the lighting is definitely something I want to do a big pass on. I always loved. That was actually something we had you do on a couple of our settlement designs, where it was just like, hey, can you just you had nothing to do with the whole design, but like, can you come back in and give us a lighting pass, because your lighting is always exceptional. So I'll try and give it the Donald Strong lighting. I know those string lights are key, because those look just so awesome. All right.
Yeah, and when you're working with those, definitely lock onto those with F7 if you.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna have to ask you for those console, or go watch your video again. Donald Strong did this awesome tutorial stream where he showed off all the place everywhere hotkeys, because everybody on the team constantly bugs him to be like, which one was that again? And I'm one of those. I always forget them. So.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you putting some love on this thing, because I think it's going to make a pretty fun city plan for the 3 people out there whose systems can run it.
Yeah, my pleasure. We need some more machine melting sanctuaries that actually look good.
Awesome. All right, thanks, man.
Yeah, take care.